In East Africa at the start of 1935, 7 years after the humanitarian cooperation agreements following the Walwal incidents in December 1934 that sparked the Italian attack on Ethiopia on the 3rd of October of the following year, 5 missionary fathers enrolled as military chaplains. In the same period, Monsignor Barlassina presented Father Mario Borello to Graziani, defining him as having a good knowledge of the languages, towns and peoples in the southeast of Abyssinia. He brought with him as a gift for the general surveys, maps and a large unpublished collection of notes and observations on that area of Ethiopia and the front under Graziani's command. So, at the time of the fascist attack on Ethiopia, some of the priests sent on a humanitarian mission to support the civil population under the apostolic prefect Monsignor Gaudenzio Barlassina had been enrolled as military chaplains and placed under the command of General Graziani. In all, there were 19 priests mobilized as military chaplains. In the Vatican, in previous years, a vehement need had emerged to recover the riches and privileges lost after the unity of Italy, the ascent of the socialists in Spain, the Bolshevik government in Russia, the Protestant and Calvinist churches in Germany, and the revolutions in South America. Worrying situations that looked set to increase in the years to come. The concept that armed force for Catholics could be accepted and approved began to make headway in many ecclesiastical hierarchies, and in fact the concept of a just war emerged in these years. The expansionist aims of Hitler could be useful to the Roman Church, which, with the 1933 Cologne Treaty between the Holy See and the Nazis, saw its role as state religion in the countries conquered or annexed by the Third Reich expanding. Franco's dictatorship in Spain gave power and wealth back to the Vatican. In Italy, however, the territory of the Church-State, which until 1870 included all of central Italy, could not be restored, but substituted by money, concessions, benefits, or new land. It's not reasonable to suppose that Ethiopia, before being conquered, was a subject of discussion in the Concordat between the Kingdom of Italy and the Holy See, but, in the light of what happened afterwards, it cannot be excluded. Italian aggression against Ethiopia began, as we have said, in October 1935. Aggression because the country was part of the Society of Nations and because war was never officially declared. The terrain under attack when the fascist troops led by General Badoglio from the north and by General Graziani from the south moved in was well guarded by friendly religious and civilian outposts. In logistical terms, it was a huge advantage, which, combined with surprise, should have brought the war to a rapid end. But we know that was not the way it happened, and that Ethiopian resistance to the advance of the fascist troops had to be crushed by the large-scale use of poison gas, basically mustard gas, on the territory and the civil population. A fratricidal war with more than 700,000 dead, most of them Christians, which darkly evoked the biblical tale of Cain and Abel. Was it perhaps this bloodshed that crieth from the ground to the Lord to mete out punishment on the world? Or was there more? In Italy, support for the regime and the colonial war involved ecclesiastics of every order and rank, starting from the magnificent rector of the Catholic University of Milan and great accuser of Padre Pio at the Sant'Uffizio, Padre Agostino Gemelli. To him we owe the ceremony of the consecration of the combatants at the Santa Cuore and the print of the Gospel of the Soldier by the Opera della Regalità del Nostro Signore Gesù Cristo. Giovanni Cazzani, in his episcopal letter to the faithful of Cremona on October 2, 1935, wrote, "True Christians, let us pray also for that poor people of Ethiopia, that they may decide to open their gates to the progress of humanity and concede that part of their lands that they know not how and cannot render fruitful to the exuberant arms of another people that is more numerous and more advanced in agriculture and industry. Let us pray that the poor people enter with their strong natural energies into the great family of the Catholic Church." Francesco Petronelli published from Avellino a pastoral letter to the Most Beloved Brothers and Sons on November 27, 1935. "Let none of us desert his place in this hour of trial. We must all feel the grave solemnity of the moment and show ourselves worthy of the name of Catholics and Italians. While our heroic soldiers carry victorious into East Africa the glorious flag of Italy with the sign of the cross, let our gaze be turned to the heavens and hands raised high. May God help me." Among the documents most representative of the enthusiastic alignment of the episcopate, the circular of the Archbishop of Amalfi, Monsignor Ercolano Marini, of November 18, 1935, aimed at fighting the evils of sanctions, Masonry, and Anglicanism, merits reflection. The Archbishop identifies analogies between the Italian people and the ancient chosen people, presenting Mussolini in the garb of a reborn Moses with a sacred alliance around him. "I rejoice in the future greatness to which Italy is destined in the world. Italy, fatherland of saints and heroes, Italy reconciled with the Church and blessed by the Pope. Italy placed by the fascist government on a legislative plane that is moral and Christian. Italy, for its freedom, citizens give their precious jewels and the bishops their golden crosses." Gaetano Salvemini observes, "If one gathered together these Mussolinian elegies coming in a continuous stream from cardinals, archbishops, priests, monks, nuns, and Catholic journalists all over the world, one would have a surprising and absurd anthology of glorification of one of the most anti-Christian regimes that has ever existed in history." On the basis of Italian press cuttings, the historian Molfettese compiled a list of the ecclesiastics who declared themselves favorable to the war. The list includes 7 cardinals, archbishops of Bologna, Florence, Genoa, Milan, Naples, Palermo, and Turin, 29 archbishops, and 74 bishops. Support for the fascist colonial campaign among ecclesiastics of every order and rank was thus widespread and manifestly sustained all over Italy. An obscure spirit of aggression towards a Christian people whose only blame was to have defended their country valiantly both during this occupation and 40 years earlier with the victory of Adua di Menelik over the Italians.
La solenne incoronazione del quadro della Vergine del Rosario, destinato all'Africa orientale.
The creator and organizer of the Marian migrations, Brother Ginepro da Pompeiana, was overcome by the enthusiastic adhesion of thousands of parishes who offered to the army innumerable statues of Madonnas, saints, sacred images, ex-votos, and bells, to the point where the military command had to stop these deliveries because there was not enough room for them in their warehouses in Massawa. The military ordinary archbishop, Monsignor Bartolomasi, wrote on the occasion, "Hundreds and hundreds of Madonnas leaving for Italian East Africa among the rejoicing of the eager hearts, welcomed by strong arms and breasts that wanted them on the fields of duty, of sacrifice, of glory. They wanted them because they reminded them of the Madonnas of their cities, villages, and sanctuaries. To them they entrusted their iron will to fight and win, their fervent desire for victory, for the fatherland, for families far away. Support for the colonial war was not just a Catholic prerogative. The Protestants too wanted to be second to no one on the patriotic front. This is shown by the diary of the pastor Giovanni Bertinatti, preserved in the archives of the Torre Pellice Society of Waldensian Studies. During the conflict between Italy and Ethiopia, I had a burning desire to join the combatants in Africa, to bring them the comfort of the Christian faith drawn from the pure sources of the Gospel. The moderator of the Waldensian Church acted to fulfill my wish. Less than 3 years from the introduction of racist legislation, the rabbis too were enlisted, with a request to Mussolini from the president of the Union of Italian-Israeli Communities, Luigi Ravenna. 5 ministers were enlisted to offer religious services to the Hebrew combatants. Ethiopia was only partly occupied by the Italians, and outside the big cities they had little effective control of a territory widely held by a tenacious and heroic resistance movement led from England by the King of Kings Haile Selassie, forced into voluntary exile with the fall of Addis Ababa in 1936. The seal of religious approval on the empire was supplied with great emphasis by the Field Mass celebrated on March 1, 1936, on the altar of the fatherland by Archbishop Bartolomasi, on the 40th anniversary of the Battle of Adua, in commemoration of the avenged dead.
Il maresciallo Badoglio telegrafa. Oggi, 5 maggio, alle ore 16, alla testa delle truppe vittoriose, sono entrato in Addis Abeba. Al popolo italiano e al mondo che la guerra è finita. L'Etiopia è italiana.
On May 5, 1936, General Badoglio entered Addis Ababa escorted by motorcyclists armed with machine guns. On the field lay the bodies of more than 400,000 people, most of them civilians, men, women and children.